Hello everyone, I'm Junjun Feng. Later on, we'll also go to Washington, D.C., where CGTN reporters and correspondents there will wish you a Happy New Year. In our special coverage, we will wrap up the past year and look forward to the future. But right now, let's go to our correspondent Richard Bestick in London. Richard, on Friday we talked about Brexit and you mentioned that the negotiations could take another 12 months in 2018. Tell me about it. And what about the EU? Is populism rising there and being reflected in their policies?
I think political populism is rising still around Europe. We've seen a large part of it in France. We've seen right-wing parties in the north of Europe get in. There's evidence of it here. I think particularly Brexit was evidence of rising populism. There's a date coming up for your diary, Junfeng. Yep. In March the 4th, Italian elections. Guess who is the leading party to win those, according to the latest opinion polls? It is, of course, the Five Star Movement, led by a professional comedian, way off the usual political radar. But here in Britain, you can see the City of London dawning behind me. What they're watching and what they want clarity on is where the British government is going with Brexit. 2018 was a bumpy ride. UK Prime Minister Theresa May tried to strengthen her hand in the Brexit negotiations by gambling her parliamentary majority on giving her greater authority. She came up short, weakening her authority here at home in Britain and, of course, in Europe, where the crucial negotiations were going on. Let's have a look at how her year panned out for Brexit as she made this mad scramble to sort out the issues surrounding it and completing the first stage before moving on to trade talks. Here's a report from my colleague Ollie Barrett. Have a listen.
The year's key Brexit moment didn't arrive until December.
I believe we have now made the workful we needed.
Agreements had been reached on the issues of citizens' rights, the Irish border and the so-called divorce bill Britain will pay as it leaves the bloc.
There's still more to do, but we're well on the road to delivering a Brexit that will make Britain prosperous, strong and secure.
It had taken months of negotiations just to get to that point, reached later than the UK government had initially hoped.
So here it is.
Having triggered Article 50 to start the Brexit process back in March. And then came a snap election which left Theresa May rather boxed in. She ended up losing her parliamentary majority, with the fragility of the resulting government adding an unwanted complication to her Brexit strategy.
The ayes to the right, 309. The noes to the left, 305.
Witness the House of Commons defeat in December as the government's Brexit legislation makes its way through Parliament. The next stages of talks with Brussels will see discussions moving on to future trading relationships. But first, a transitional arrangement will have to be settled.
If there is no transitional period, then we will have essentially a chaotic Brexit. We will crash out in March 2019. The likelihood is significant disruption to trade between the UK and the rest of Europe.
And all of this has to be navigated with a fragile government, a cabinet divided between so-called Brexiteers and those who campaigned to stay in the EU, as well as persisting concerns about whether a final exit agreement is possible, which doesn't require a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland.
Well, Junfeng, you can hear there from Ollie Barrett's report that he's suggesting there may indeed be a cabinet reshuffle. Theresa May, the UK Prime Minister, needing to sort out the divided ranks of her cabinet colleagues. We'll see how that goes. And while they do that, of course, the business community, the manufacturing community want to hear more about what the end game may be to Britain's Brexit strategy. We're expecting a speech in February from the Prime Minister Theresa May. perhaps further clarity will come then. Junfeng.
Thanks so much, Richard. Well, Richard got up really early this morning, obviously, and saw the beautiful sunrise in London. It's 8 a.m. in London. Whatever goes on in this world, a new day will come. 2017 was a special year for British people as they dealt with the ongoing fallout from their referendum to break away from the European Union. The British people and companies are now adjusting to a new age, while their government struggles to reach a satisfactory divorce settlement with the EU. We see the sun is going to rise in London very soon. Now, for more insights, let's continue our conversation with Mr. Liu Mingli, Deputy Director of China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. Mr. Liu, how much progress do you think has been made in Brexit talks so far?
I think for the Brexit talks, the phase 1 is over. This means the 3 issues has been handled, which are citizens' rights and the border between Ireland and North Ireland, and also how much UK need to pay for the Brexit. That's the first one, phase 1. And for the next, there will be tougher issues, including the trade deals between UK and the European Union. That will be much tougher than phase 1.
Remind us, how much does the UK have to pay to the EU?
I think 500 billion pounds UK need to pay before the year of 2019.
400 billion pounds.
Yes.
That's the default bill. What is the UK's economic status now, and what are the losses and gains for UK to exit from the European Union? 400 billion pounds is quite a big deal, huh?
Yes, I think UK's economy is slowing down. About 2 or 3 years ago, UK used to enjoy a growth rate of 3%, but for this year, 2017 is about 1.8, and for next year it's almost the same. Some investors are hesitating in investing more in UK because they don't know what exact deal will strike between the UK and the economic European Union. But personally, I think UK doesn't have a lot to gain from the Brexit because UK may lose the full access to the European market.
Yeah.
If there is some, I think maybe there's an opportunity for UK to have more opportunity to strike trade deals with other economies because if UK is not a member of the Union, it is free to strike deals with other economies.
Yes. Some experts mentioned that the EU may be using the UK's Brexit as an example. Very costly Brexit to show to other EU members that how expensive an exit would be from the European Union. What do you think?
I think German Chancellor Merkel has made it clear that there is no cherry picking for United Kingdom. I understand that the European integration is very important for the European continent. It's about peace and prosperity. If other members of the European Union follow the example of UK, I think that will lead a disaster, both economic disaster and political ones for the whole European Union. So, to my understanding, UK will not gain a lot from the Brexit talks.
All right. We'll get back to you with you again, Mr. Liu, to talk about other issues. All right, you're watching our special presentation, Daybreak 2018. We'll continue our coverage in Europe after a very short break. Well, definitely, Richard, you're getting a very beautiful dawn there. Let's continue to talk about UK-China relationship. Someday Brexit will move the UK even closer to China economically. So we're having about 8 hours time difference and quite a long trade route. But what are your thoughts about the UK-China relationship economically?
You're absolutely right, Junfeng. Britain is going to need to develop strong trade ties with trading blocs around the world and individual nation states. Now, what they're going to discover in that process is how very difficult and drawn out it is. Let's be clear here, though. Britain isn't being allowed to break away and agree its own trade relations before everything is agreed on the divorce arrangements with the European Union, and that could take another 2 years. As Professor Liu Wingli there was suggesting, the clock is ticking. They've got very limited amount of time to agree negotiations, to agree a trading relationship with the European Union. That's really got to be accomplished by later in 2018. So although we're on the first day, the dawn of 2018 here in London, really they've got to be off the starting blocks rapidly to start working out exactly what kind of relationship Britain is going to have with this massive trading bloc on its doorstep. Now, what will that mean for its future relations? Well, already Britain is cozying up to various countries around the world, the United States, for example, in particular with China. You saw the 9th Financial and Economic Dialogue gathering in Beijing just last week that they've announced that the former Premier here, David Cameron, will be heading up a new infrastructure, $1 billion infrastructure fund to work with the Chinese. Britain is also very much involved in the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, another Chinese initiative. So it is being outreaching, it is being outgoing, but having said that, the burden that they must first sort out, and they must do it against a very tight deadline, is sorting out the end game, working out what they want to have, what kind of relationship, where they will stand when all this is done and dusted and Britain finally leaves the European Union very soon now, March 2019.
Yes, definitely. Tight schedule, lots of work. Thank you so much, Richard Bestick, for us in London. For more insights, let's continue our conversation with Mr. Liu Mingli, China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. How will Brexit change China-UK relations?
Economically, I think the Brexit will bring China and UK closer because for UK is negotiating with the European Union. In the meanwhile, UK is also talking to other potential trade partners. For the time being, UK is still a member of the European Union. He cannot launch official talks, but he can communicate with other economic partners. Yes, and for China is a huge market. It's the #1 emerging market. That's very important for UK under the background of UK may losing some European market, and also China can also bring some new business, for example, financial business to the London market. I think that's very important.
The yuan trade market, right? Yeah. And how will the Brexit influence China-EU relations?
I think economically, China is more important for European Union because there's kind of a competition between UK and the EU. For example, both UK and the EU has no trade deals with China. If UK take advantage of strike a free trade deal with China, that will be a challenge for the European Union. So I think, and also, for example, in service industry, UK is a financial center at the global stage, but Paris and Frankfurt and other European cities are also struggling to be the new financial center of Europe under the background Brexit. And China has a lot of financial business, including the One Belt, One Road initiative. So China is also important for the new potential financial centers in the European continent.
Right. You mentioned a lot of financial cooperation, actually. Last week, the leaders of the financial sectors of China, UK, got together in Beijing and discussed their cooperation. Tell us about the achievements of this cooperation and what are the implications of the financial cooperation between the two countries.
Yes, the talk was held about 2 weeks ago in Beijing, and a lot of deals was concluded in these talks. I think about over 70 articles in this. For example, there will be more connections between the Shanghai stock market and the London stock market.
You're already talking about the Connect program, right?
Yes, that will be possible in the future. And for the UK as a World Financial Center, UK will hold One Belt, One Road Summit in UK. That's also very important for the UK and China relations. And I think in the future, under the background of Brexit, EU and China may have a lot more cooperations between each other.
Great. Thank you for your insights, Mr. Liu Beiling, for us. All right, you're watching Global Business. Coming up next. A batch of new rules, including a pollution tax law, takes effect on this very first day of 2018.